Hi there, welcome to Long Distance Review. This week, well actually there's been loads of albums out this last week that I've wanted to do. There's been about 3 or 4 that I've been really keen on doing. Coheed and Cambria came out, and also a Now Nathrak came out the other week, and now Black Peaks has dropped as well, and also Behemoth released an album. Sometimes you wait weeks for an album, and then 4 come along at once. Anyway, I've concentrated today's episode on the release by the band Black Peaks. It's their second album. It's called All That Divides Us. Bit of history with Black Peaks. They were formed in 2012. They're from Brighton in the UK, and they were originally called Shrine, and they released an EP under that name called Closer to the Sun, sorry, and that came out in 2014. During this time, they changed their name to Black Peaks, and they toured extensively, some real successful touring, and got signed to Sony in 2016 and released their first debut album entitled Statues. A lot of buzz around the band at this point in time. Statues was released to really big critical acclaim and a lot of support from radio. Radio 1 got on board with them, which in this day and age, for Radio 1 to get on board with a rock band is something to behold, really, and it's really pleasing to see that they took the band up on them, and the songs like Glass Built Castles and Saviour got played on Radio 1, which is incredible, really, when you look at the songs. During this time, they supported huge bands. They supported System of a Down, they supported Deftones, and they supported Mastodon. And there's a lot of hype around the band. So, we come up to the second album. It's the difficult second album. And, so the sound of Black Peaks, a hard one to describe. This album's got a lot of prog rock involved on it, but really post-hardcore, alt-rock, math rock, very technical, but retaining melody as well. There's a lot of elements of everything. Think along the lines of bands like Mastodon and Tool, Dillinger Escape Plan. Those kind of bands, they're in that bracket, I think. On this album, then, their members are Will Gardner on vocals, and Joe Gosney on guitar, Dave Larkin on bass, and Liam Curley on drums. They're only changing member from the first album to bassist Dave Larkin. He's new for this album. So, All That Divides Us, the difficult second album, opens up with the single they released before the album called Can't Sleep. An obvious single choice, really, when you look at it. It's very, very much Statues. Like, it could have been taken off Statues, and that's not a criticism at all, by the way. I love Can't Sleep. I think it opens up with this huge twisted riff, big chorus, but retains the menace that sort of Black Peaks always have, especially in Will's voice. It's immediately really that Will's voice sticks out straight at me on this album. His performance is upped from Statues. His ability to switch from clean singing to guttural, harsh screams is incredibly talented, and I think if you look at the song Midnight Sun, which is the second song, that's a great example of what he does with his voice. But this is where they become more expansive as well. Midnight Sun is a much more expansive song, and this shows sort of the progression of Black Peaks, really, from Statues, and it's a 6.5 minute prog rock post-hardcore epic, I guess. It shows how far they've come from Statues and possibly where they're going as well. It's complex, but it's still catchy. It's never dull. Look at the song. There's a song called Ether, which is probably the sort of standout song in my eyes, but the standout moment where you think, wow, Black Peaks, they are not the band that they were on Statues. Ether's a new avenue. It's still Black Peaks. It's still got the same complex melodies, the twisting, hulking riffs, and Will's incredible vocals. But it's a song that's it's more expansive. It's given a chance for the melodies to breathe, and it builds and builds to a sort of wonderful string crescendo on it. And the hook of the line, "I can see the trees through the lake," you'll have that stuck in your head all day, because I have been singing that all day, I think. Ether also showcases the sort of wonderful drumming and bass on this album. The rhythm section on this album seems to be pushed to the front on a lot of these songs, and it's experimental and it's interesting, and it really makes the album. As I said, it's an expansive album. Each song, there's only 9 songs on it, but it certainly doesn't feel like 9 songs. Some of the songs are quite long. They're not ridiculously long. It's not like you're listening to Rush or anything like that. It's just they're long enough to sort of all contain twists and turns. They're unpredictable at times, but they seem to retain the essence of melody enough to sort of entrap the listener and enthrall them. And I think that's an incredible talent to be able to do that. You look down the songs, the song "Home," which was another one that was released before the album dropped, that really showcases Will's vocals on it, the range he's got. And it almost sounds like despair and sadness is dripping from his voice when he starts that song. But then if you want a big mosh pit number and you think, oh, the harsher vocals are gone, they're not. This band is still crushing. They're monolithic. They're big and heavy. That's why I like them to Mastodon, that kind of feel to it. Crushing band. Listen to a song like Eternal Light. The closing section on that is a mosh pit call. If you want that, that's on here as well. If you want prog rock and a bit more expansive and experimental, that's on here as well. There's lots of complex rhythms, and it's an incredible album, I think. As I said before, I think it's Will's performance on this album as the vocalist which really makes this album. He effortlessly swaps between guttural harsh and beautiful, clean melodies, and going up to almost falsetto on the song at the end, Fate 1 and 2. His performance level has been really ramped up from Statues, and it's not like it was bad on Statues, but this just seems to have gone to another level completely. Fate 1 and 2 is a really interesting song, actually. It closes the album out, and it feels like a sort of light moment amongst a very... it's not a dark album, but it's an album that seems to be steeped in paranoia and despair. Although it's not a concept album as such, I think it's an album built around today's political climate, and Statues was similar, and this is kind of a follow-on from that, about how the world would be, if what happened on Statues happened. I think that's kind of where they're going with it. So there's a lot of paranoia and a lot of sadness, a lot of despair, but Fate 1 and 2 is like a call to arms at the end of we can change, we can do something. And it's a really interesting song. It's a real beautiful melody to finish on. This is a stunning album, as I've said already. This is a real contender for Album of the Year for me. This eclipses Statues, and this is so interesting. They're still heavy. They're still crushing. I went to see them live last week. They played in London on album launch day on a really small venue, and the band is so tight, and they're so heavy live, and Will's voice is unbelievable live. There's not a note missed. Brilliant. They're a really special band, and I think we're very lucky to have a band like this in the UK that radio are backing. And when rock is sort of down in the gutter in terms of mainstream, to have a band that's getting airplay and support from radio, and they're as good as this, we're lucky to have them around. So please, helpfully there, my GoPro decided just to cut out for no real reason. Anyway, that was the end of the review, but I just wanted to say, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the album. Go check out Black Peaks. I'll have some more album reviews up soon. As I said, Coheed and Cambria is out. Behemoth's out. And now Nathrak came out a couple of weeks ago, but these albums, they take a lot of listening, some of them, especially like the Coheed and Cambria, Behemoth. There's a lot going on with those albums. So I do want to get those album reviews out. So I'm hoping, like for the rest of this week, I'll try and do some more reviews. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye.